Hi, everyone. I wanted to do a quick bonus lesson or class for the shared housing class for real estate investors. Again, my name is Kirsten Vanderjack. You've probably been listening to me the last 12 hours, and I really appreciate you taking the initiative to turn your rentals into shared housing or halfway homes. We're looking at an article that came out on November 27th, 2023 about the number of immigrants that are continuing to come into the United States. And there's articles that come out like this every single day where the US is continuing to see increased levels of migrant encounters at the southwest border, fueled by smugglers peddling disinformation to prey on vulnerable individuals and encourage migration into the United States. And once they get here, the local government is trying to find a place to bus them to or to house them. And in some cases, they are being housed in chain link areas within commercial buildings. And so they'll separate the men, the women, the children, and they are looking for a safe house, not a hidden house, but just a safe environment for these people to be housed. Of course, a lot of times they don't have money or an ID quite yet, which is why there's this huge gap in how to help these people. They can't go to a hotel, they can't go on Airbnb, they can't sign a long-term lease. And so you can decide if you would like to offer your houses and take long-term government contracts in order to help the United States and your communities, and of course, humans, our brothers and sisters overall. And so I wanted to show you that if you're in a pinch for a house for some reason and you are interested in arbitraging a house, which would be to rent it long term and then to turn around and sublet the rooms, double occupancy, triple occupancy, if the rooms are large enough, or even single occupancy. One way that you might want to go about that is to go on Zillow.com or any of the other platforms like Trulia, and there's several of them, Redfin, etc. And you can look for a house that is for rent instead of for sale. And the main key here is that you'll want to look by bedroom size, and you'll want to check your state to see if it's legal or what some of the requirements might be. And so you can look online for that. Of course, if you don't own the property, the landlord could ask you to move out, and going about doing a lease with the landlord might be something that very specific verbiage would be necessary, which we are going to cover here in just a moment. But first, let's find a house by looking at the whole United States, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. So I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to look for houses only. And we can look by state for whatever state that you are licensed and insured in, or you can look by area if you know that there's a very specific area, a town that you want to focus on. And of course, along the border regions, even New York is having quite an influx of immigration there. That's what you would want to do. So we're looking at Texas right now, and we can see that in Texas, there are close to 11,000 homes that are 4-bedroom, 2-bath that are single family. And I would recommend looking at a price point of a maximum of $2,000. And now you can see that there are roughly 2,000 results, and you can go through these houses. I personally would look to exclude anything with an HOA, and I'm looking for something in a B-class neighborhood. And then I'm going to have to go through that house with more of a fine-tooth comb based on some of the other classes that we've already had regarding what to look for in a shared house. But just right now, I can tell you that a few of these look pretty good. This one here looks pretty good. And if I can get a 5-bedroom, I'm going to opt for a 5-bedroom. And look, right here in Fort Worth, a 5'2", 2,300 square feet, that's pretty large. It's less than 2,000. If I take a look here, it's not super pretty on the outside, but the inside looks okay. And I would have to see if this is in a B-class neighborhood and some other types of things, but it doesn't look terrible. I think the grass needs to be painted, which is a thing in some places because it hasn't been watered. And once I have determined a house that I would like to write a lease on, then I could prepare this lease myself based on the online data, or I could reach out to the leasing agent on Zillow and ask them to prepare a lease. But I know if they prepare it, it's probably going to be something state specific and it's not going to have some of the information that I would like in it. Let me tell you what some of that information would be. Number one, the tenant. I would want to decide if that's going to be in my personal name or in my LLC or in my nonprofit name. And I know that some lenders, when they see an LLC or a nonprofit as the tenant, they might raise an eyebrow to that because they're not sure if the lease is legitimate or if that's just a fictitious company that was set up to try and claim income on the property. And there are different kinds of lenders for, acquiring through purchase or through refinance. Or, if you are doing fix and flips, if you guys ever need help, you can reach out to me at katieshousefoundation.org and I can refer you to some lenders for vanilla through Creative. But back to the tenant, you need to decide who is going to be the tenant. If it's going to be you as an individual, are you going to then assign the lease to your LLC or nonprofit? That is something to consider. And then who are the occupants? So in some cases, you may want to put something like guests of Jane Doe. So if Jane Doe is the person who's the tenant, then the occupants would be Jane Doe's guests, which could be really anyone. It could also be guests of ABC LLC. And basically that would be something to the effect of a corporate lease. You could do the same thing for a nonprofit, and the landlord may or may not be okay with that terminology. Furnishings, are they going to furnish it? And then one thing that's really important here, just so you guys know, is going to be, well, the sale of the property. If the landlord sells the property and you're running a business out of it, that's important. So you'll want to ask if they plan to sell. Pets, if you're going to allow maybe one pet into the house, I would say no to water beds. And here's assignment, guests, etc. And what I'm actually looking for here is if you need to cancel. So normally you can write in a cancellation and then you can write in additional terms and conditions. I know that there is a cancellation in here and I would recommend putting in $500 if for some reason you need to cancel this lease. So that's early termination right here. And then also who's paying the utilities. Normally you're going to want to pay the utilities to make sure that they're always on and that you don't have any impacts to your operation. But if something happens in your life and you need to, for some reason, cancel this lease, then a $500 early termination might make sense for the landlord and for you. And the other important thing that I would say to include would be that the insurance for the structure is needs to be in force and paid for by the landlord, which is the owner of the structure. The renter's insurance would be paid for by the tenant, which in this case, you are the tenant and you are insuring the contents inside of that property. And then if you have an additional layer of insurance, we already talked about in class number 11, which would be the social services insurance. And finally, on this bonus class, I did want to share with you our reoccurring housekeeper scope of work. We like to have a housekeeper come in once a month or as needed. Maybe it costs $100 or $150, and we would give them this checklist so that way they know what's expected. They may or may not have their own insurance. That's just something that we would like to know. So in case they break something, we know if we have to cover it. And then, we will have either our property manager complete this to see if they did a good job and if we want to rehire them, or if the housekeeper is willing to complete this and just checklist it, then that is really helpful. The objective here is clear communication and also making sure that the property, whether it's one that you own or one that you lease, is staying in excellent condition because you're operating a shelter or halfway house for the benefit of the individuals who live there and for the community. And of course, you want to have happy people who have a positive, measurable impact. That way, you can continue to get grant funding and continue to purchase homes in your LLC or however you've decided to do that. We hope that you have enjoyed this bonus class and that you will take some time to look up rental arbitrage in your state. Here on the screen, we have the pros and cons for tenants in case you decide to move forward and consider doing long-term rentals on properties, which you turn around and sublet those rooms to, single, double, triple occupancy in order to help your community and help the United States government. And also, as a real estate investor, create a legacy with a ton of purpose. So thank you so much again for attending the shared housing class for real estate investors provided by the Normalized Money Project and put on by Katie's House Foundation based in Alabama. Have a wonderful day and we look forward to working with you.